Welcome. I'm Tanya, and this is the podcast following Spirit Without Hesitation, stories from journeys in deepening trust. And today I have with me Melissa. Welcome, Melissa.
To be here.
Went a little bit silent then, so I'm just framing that. So I know Melissa, we've never met in person, have we? We met online
No.
through a healing training that I think we both did several levels in, and we were exchanging sessions. So we both knew Melissa is, we call it small holding here in the UK, or crofting, and what you call homesteading, I believe,
Right.
in the States. And so which I had done, I think I was already coming out of that. And so we knew we had some sort of interests in common. And then we were doing this, I don't know if you remember, Melissa, we were doing this one exchange, and this delivery driver knocks on the door. And because he always has treats, my dog, I have to open the door because my dog insists. And it was knives for like a survival training course that I was doing, and then suddenly that opened up another connection that we had around working with the natural world in the various ways that we
Do-
have done. So is there anything more you'd like to say to introduce yourself, Melissa?
No, I think that sums it up. So we met in the divine healing realm and just have stayed in touch here and there and always enjoy having conversations with you. There's always a lot of laughing and fun stories when we get together. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I hope we're going to share some more today. So, as you know, the podcast is about following spirit without hesitation. And as you were saying earlier, it's also times where we do have hesitation. So, what is your experience or your process around following spirit?
Following spirit. Yeah. So that has been a really interesting journey and has changed over the years as I've become more confident and um, been able to connect with myself a little bit deeper. So it used to be, I joked with Tanya that when she sent me the email with the information about our podcast and the theme, it made me laugh because I was like, oh, following spirit without hesitation. Yeah, it didn't start that way. There was lots of like dragging and kicking and screaming sometimes in my process. So luckily I have become older, wiser, and have, you know, a process now that I um generally just I do a lot of meditation. I spend a lot of time in nature. It's just I've always needed to. I am an Aquarius. I'm an air sign, and I am often, I joke my husband is my earth sign, and I'm the kite, he's the string that keeps me here down on earth. Um so I need a lot of time grounding, like physically in nature, in order to stay here and not float away. So yeah, so a lot of time stillness
Yeah.
is really important for me. I This summer I spent a lot of time in water, also, the water bear, a lot of time swimming, and that just helps really ground me and keep me level, especially emotionally.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So, do you have any stories that you would like to share from your journey of, as you're saying, moving or the kicking and screaming into finding that process?
Oh, yeah. So, um, I guess my some of the first things that came to mind was graduating from here, it would be like high school, so I'm 18 years old, and all of my friends, most of them were going to school to be teachers, and I really didn't have a great relationship with public. I was in public school, never really liked school. the last thing on earth I thought I was ever going to do is be a teacher, because to me, teaching meant this formal, government style of teaching. And just never had a great relationship with that. So all my friends went to school, and I'm stuck there looking at back then it was a catalog that you would get, and you had to pick something like a degree in a school to go to. And I remember thinking, like, how does anybody ever like pick and choose one thing? Like I wanted to do like all of it, right? like, like how do you just decide? So that was my first thought, like, oh, I really like to learn. I just don't like that style of learning that I've been in, right? So I love learning. I'm a lifetime learner. I know that about myself now, but that was that first like time where I had to like stand in the crosswalk and be like, okay, which way am I going to go? So I started art school, and then really quickly realized that I was very creative and very artistic, but that was not my people, not my thing. So I finally found a school that was rooted in the outdoors. So I went to school for conservation, and that's kind of really where I found my place. And the first time I really loved a formal setting for learning. And part of it was that, so for, gosh, I think it was 7 years altogether that I studied natural resource conservation and environmental studies. I spent a lot of time traveling. In fact, the school that I went to was an outdoor school. It was experiential learning based, and we didn't even have a campus and a classroom. Like, I had a backpack and a trail, right? So I got to live out of a backpack. I got to travel a lot. Lived in community, lived in the outdoors, and it was just a place that I really excelled. So it was an outdoor leadership school, and I loved it. And so, um, and how I got there, like the synchronicities that had to line up perfectly for me to even learn about this school, really made me think, like, wow, there's something to this. I
Mm,
I
yeah.
I said yes at the last minute between programs. I said yes at the last minute to a weekend canoe trip that I wasn't supposed to go on. And that's where I met the teacher, the faculty person for this outdoor experiential based college. And if I hadn't gone on that trip, I never would have learned about that program. So I had this kind of like aha moment with myself where I was like, oh, it's interesting. Like, why did I choose to do that? And I processed that and thought about it a lot. And I was like, so there was something higher, something bigger than myself that guided me to there. And so that was kind of, I was maybe 21 or 22 at that time. So still young, but
Yeah.
just starting to first really realize, like, there's a larger power at play here. Um, and just really learning about intuition and following that, because I was always very intuitive, but I didn't have a name for it. I didn't have a really the full concept figured out.
Uh-huh.
And but that's kind of when it started to ruminate within me. It was like, huh, like when I really think about it and go within and follow my heart and follow that intuition, it leads me to really cool places.
Mm. And that takes stillness, doesn't it?
It does.
In that really, that still place. And you were talking earlier about that in between. So do you like to share more about that, or your stories from it, your experience of that?
I would love to. So that same program, the outdoor, it was called the Audubon Expedition Institute. And it was really, I can say, there's a lot of programs in schools that say they're transformational, but this one really was. It was a really profound time in my life. And I had some amazing professors during those years. And one of them introduced me to the concept of open space. So, um, which I'd never really thought about before. And then he also introduced me to the concept of one of my assignments, which I thought was hilarious, because he recognized that I was sort of like a perfectionist when it came to things. And so one of my assignments for that semester was to fail at something. And I looked at him and I'm like, you want me to do what? He's like, I want you to mess something up really bad. Like just fail, like fall on your face. Like, and I was
Whoa.
like, so he introduced me to open space, that time in between, that stillness. He also was a yogi and practiced meditation, and he sort of introduced me to that practice as well. Really, really brilliant, brilliant man. And so I learned a lot from him that semester. We were living in Alaska, so in a pretty cold,
Beautiful.
dark, harsh environment.
Mm.
And there were a lot of challenges to living outside, especially for students who hadn't had a lot of experience out in the doors or maybe weren't as comfortable. It was cold, it was dark. We were living in tents, you know, and it's snowing, like it's winter camping. Um, and so there were some interpersonal challenges, some individual challenges just with learning to exist in an environment that's a little challenging and hard to live in. And then on top of that, trying to learn and get through coursework and community building projects and things like that. Um, so yeah, so that's where I met Aaron, was in Alaska. And he still is a very special person to me. So, but yeah, he's the first person who assigned me failure. And I learned a lot from that. And that's really gets into a whole nother concept of those times in life where we fall on our face, we learn the most.
Mm. But to have deliberately done it. But
Deliberately to have,
so there's this, so that attempting to failure and this open space. Can you tell me how those two kind of connect and maybe say a little bit more about that open space experience and what it is and um, yeah, how it works?
yeah, so I can give would an example be okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So fast forward um through college, I had a career for 17 years. I was a director of natural history programs. So I actually made a career out of my environmental field. I was in a position of leadership. I had 30 staff, 150 volunteers. I loved my job. I built this really amazing um learning space. And I didn't enjoy it anymore. I got to this period where I felt like I had outgrown my role and I was having a hard time getting up and going to work every day. And I had what people from the outside would think is like the perfect career, the perfect job, the perfect, everything was great. But inside, I was struggling to be there every day. So I won't get into all the reasons why, but I knew I needed to leave and I knew I needed to quit. So I didn't have any plan at all. Um, and I took a big leap and I just quit. After 17 years, I resigned
Wow.
and I had no plan. Like, no plan. I just was like, I need to quit and I need to quit now. And I just did. And it was scary as heck, but literally as soon as I let go of that role, within hours, literally within days, new things started to flood in. It was like I had finally let go of
Mhm.
that person I needed to be, that role I had to play. Um, and as soon as I detached from that and felt like this huge shift of relief, like just energetically was like so relieved that I didn't have to play that role anymore. Um, and I didn't have a plan and anything to move forward in, there was open space. There was like, okay, now what? Now what am I going to do with myself? Right. And I remember the first few days being home, I just gave myself this grace period where I was like, my husband was really supportive. He was like, just stay home for a while. We've got plenty of money saved. You've got income still coming in. Like, just take some time to figure out what you want to do. And so that was a period of open space for me. And again, it was another profound time where I was like, oh my gosh, as soon as I let go of what wasn't working and just gave myself that a breath, new things started flooding in. Information started coming to me, opportunities started coming to me. I had been working on, Tanya knows I was been beekeeper on and off for years, and I'd been trying to grow my beekeeping business, and then all of a sudden it exploded. It was like I had time and space and energy for that. And then within like 3 days of resigning from that position, I met someone who I ended up working with and learning from in the natural health and medicine field. Like it was just the crazy story. Like I just got an email one morning and it was like, you should come to this workshop. I didn't even know what it was about. And I was like, I have to go, I have to be here and I have to go to this. And I went. I had no idea what it even was. And I met this woman there. And then we ended up working together for 5 years. And that was like the start of my new path.
Mm.
So yeah, when you allow the open space and time, it all just happens and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it? And I feel that it's so against the grain of conventional
Oh, completely.
society, right? Because we're always encouraged to have that clarity and a direction and to know where we're going, but we need both for balance. We need to be able to have that also that uncertainty as well, and allow ourselves that those times of confusion. And yet it's the natural process. And I know you spend a lot of time with the earth, so you're very aware of those natural rhythms, but it's something that is considered unconventional by today's standards. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that having had that early experience, at least my feeling is of, setting out to fail. And I know from my own experiences, the more I've done things like that, the easier it gets because you become aware of the process. You still have the same feelings, but you've done it before, so you can do it again. So
Right.
so it's simpler.
You get
So
more comfortable taking the jump off the cliff.
yes,
You
yeah.
just do. You're like, It's always gonna work out. It always works out, and it usually works out better than I could have ever planned. So just take the leap.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was terrifying, especially after being in a place for 17 years and
Mm.
having so many relationships. And I had people coming to me trying to talk me out of it. Like, what are you thinking? Are you having like a mental breakdown? Are you okay? Like, I couldn't understand something you
Yeah.
said.
So I was going
I
to
was
ask
gonna,
more about the bees, and then you go down into the healing modality, and that ends up unfolding into your new life.
yeah.
Do you have any other stories of jumping off those cliffs or following spirit?
Yeah, so I guess, well, I have kind of a funny one from when I was 5 years old. Something you just said made me think you said, I never really understood that like sort of was naturally unconventional, like because I have always been. And my mom recently was sharing a story that I'd forgotten about from when I was 5. I had just started kindergarten, and school was very traumatic for me. Like I was used to being like a feral child, right? So we lived outdoors. We would be gone all day in the woods. Like everything was about play and nature and our animals and the natural world. And then I had to go to this, indoors, sit in a desk all day and follow directions and just sit there. And that was not how that didn't work for me as I was when I was 5.
Mm.
So school was kind of traumatic. And I remember we got this, it was called Scholastic Book Club. I don't know if you had that where
There
you
are
grew up. It was like this little
there are
catalog that
book clubs. Yeah.
yeah, it was like this little catalog that they gave all of the students, and it had books you could order at a discount for students. And I was so excited because I loved books. And so I brought the first little catalog home, and it was the one thing I actually was excited about at school was getting this thing I could order books from, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. So my mom wanted to support it because it was actually something I enjoyed at school. So she was like, yeah, pick a book out. And so I picked this book out and I told my mom that I wanted this book. And she looked at me and she was like, that's not a book for kindergarten, Melissa. Like you need to pick the books from this catalog, part of the catalog. These are the books for your grade, and I was like, no, I had a royal fit about it. I was like, I want this book. And it was a book on astrology. And it was like for adults practically. But I saw the cover and I think it was the first time that I could recognize that I could like pick up on energy and read energy. And I was following the energy. I wanted that book because I knew that book was going to tell me more about myself and explain some things to me. And I didn't know how to verbalize that, but I just knew that I needed that book. So I had a royal fit about my mom telling me no about the book. But needless to say, I have the book. It's still on my shelf. But
I
my
love
mother, bless my mother, she bought me the book.
that.
And I remember studying that book at 5 years old and being like, I'm an Aquarius. And oh my gosh, these like, and it was the first time that the unconventional child that came to Earth started to understand a little bit more about myself and realize that, you know, I didn't need to feel like I didn't belong here. I was just different than some of the other children. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, in that place, in that example, it was following the energy of, yeah, of that book. And it helped me in a way.
yeah. I have a similar story that when I was about 7, there was in here it's sort of in the newspapers and that there'd be these columns, and I knew I was a Libra, and so like you're an air sign, and I think I'm nothing like a Libra, and that got me curious to find out more about astrology from that age. So I would glean that. Um, I was just hesitated then because as I was talking, it was so interesting with what you were saying about directions, and I could hear the geese following their directions, right? But they're in their way. And then I know earlier I was hearing the birds around you, and then there was a hawk here as well. So there's been a lot of
Birds are here. My chickadees are here now. I don't know if you saw if you followed my journey with the chickadees.
some of it, some of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a family that they come here multiple times a day and they will even eat out of my hand. Their family.
Yeah. 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 And I think I just love that whole um like that connection with birds and us both being air signs, but also with the earth, right? And within astrology are the 4 elements, which for me and is a real still a very important part of the work that I do. And then I'm seeing you talking about when you're 5, and then going back to that environment as part of um your career, and then starting to weave the magic as well in with that. So I just when I'm sort of talking, sort of whether with friends or with guests, I start to see a longer view, a sort of life view, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's amazing how all of these threads come together and weave. So thank you.
So my current business, there's a thread that weaves. So I studied sustainable agriculture in college also, and I've always been a gardener, had to have my hands in the dirt. I loved like soil science when I was in school. And I've always just been really good at like growing things and cooking and food and like putting all of those pieces together. So that's kind of what led me to where I'm at now. One of the things I specialize in are mineral deficiencies in humans because our health and those deficiencies directly correlate to our food and the food systems. So I help people uncover through a really old practice. It's a facial analysis practice. It's
Yeah.
not known about widely. It's not common, but it started with Dr. Wilhelm Schussler back in the 1800s, and learning to read and map the face, the symptoms that people are experiencing to directly to soil mineral deficiencies that we all have. And so that is what kind of, I had the same experience that I did when I was in high school, and I had to figure out what I wanted to go to college for, and I was like, I want to do everything. Like, how do I choose, right? I felt the same way when I got into natural health. I was like, I know I need to be in this new field, and I'm very interested in it, and I know that's the work I'm supposed to be doing, but like there's so many different directions you can go. And, and so when I learned about orthomolecular work, so like helping people figure out their vitamin mineral deficiencies, it really went back full circle to when I studied agriculture, because it's connected to our food, it's connected to the earth, and that's really how I chose which path to take in natural health. Was directly rooted
Mm.
to the earth and the minerals, and it's all kind of connected for me, and all came back around full circle again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's really beautiful. And I yeah, I have a similar passion around those connections as well. The health of our soil reflects the health of our bodies and the health of our food, and the importance of that. Oh, thank you, Melissa. I could talk to you about a lot more, but I've really, really enjoyed listening to your stories today. So thank you for joining me here on the podcast. Okay. Thank you everybody who's been watching or listening. I'll leave Melissa's information in the description box down below, wherever you might either be watching or listening to this. So thank you very much from my heart to yours.